There is guilt and shame as we understand it in this culture. And then there is something that's translated very similarly in the Pali. That's actually quite a different concept, the hiri ottappa. So I think I'll talk about the hiri ottappa first, and then I'll get into good old-fashioned American guilt and shame. Right? Okay, so to speak. Okay, so the Lord Buddha said, because there are these two dark qualities, what two? Moral shamelessness and moral recklessness. These are the two dark qualities. Because there are these two bright qualities, what two? Moral shame and moral dread. These are the two bright qualities. Well, who wants to live with moral shame and moral dread? This is horrible. And I long for the day that we come up with a better translation. Sometimes people say instead, wholesome shame, wholesome dread, or I've heard it more frequently translated, this is Venerable Bodhi, I've more frequently heard it translated as shame and fear of wrongdoing. And then one more here this is in the Book of Twos in the Anguttara Nikaya. It's number 7, number 8, now number 9. Because these two bright qualities protect the world. What two? Moral shame and moral dread. If these two bright qualities did not protect the world, there would not be seen here any restraint regarding one's mother, aunts, or the wives of one's teachers and other respected people. The world would become promiscuous, like goats and sheep, chickens and pigs, dogs and jackals. But because these two bright qualities protect the world, there is seen here restraint regarding one's mother, aunts, or the wives of one's teachers and other respected people. In other words, if there weren't shame and fear of wrongdoing, you would even have adultery, or perhaps a man would even force himself upon women, respected people, because it's just that things could get that very low if there were no positive restraints. Thanks, Dallas. Thank you. And a footnote to this business of moral shame, hiri is the moral shame, moral dread is ottappa. Moral shame, hiri, is discussed at bodily and verbal misconduct. Moral dread, ottappa, is moral dread over such misconduct. Moral shame is directed inwardly. It arises from self-respect and induces one to reject wrongdoing based on the sense of one's own inherent dignity. Moral dread has an outward direction. It arises from fear of blame and induces one to reject wrongdoing based on the fear of the consequences. So that puts in a nutshell how I understand hiri ottappa, that hiri is this wholesome concern that you might do wrong, like you just don't want to do wrong. And ottappa is not wanting to be seen as doing wrong, like you really care that others would care that you did something bad. So hiri ottappa are incredibly important qualities. And someday we will come up with a suitable translation that doesn't mix it up with anything having to do with like shame and guilt. This is not the kind of quality that these are talking about. Now, getting onto shame and guilt. These also have a purpose. I don't know what their counterparts in Pali would be. And so I'm winging it just a little bit here. I may be missing something in the Pali, in the teachings that should be referenced, and if so, I welcome anyone to break in with that further information or teaching. But we have a conscience. We need a conscience. There is that hiri ottappa, so we need that. And sometimes we violate our own conscience, or we learn better and we reflect on things that we did. And again, that sense of the violating of our conscience brings up discomfort. And the discomfort can come in more than one way. So the best scenario is that discomfort arises around my own behavior. And I do what is recommended in the Buddha's advice to Rahula at the Mango Stone. Would a quick-fingered sutta hunter bring up the Ambatta, Rahulavara, Ambalatika Rahulavara Sutta? My favorite word in Pali is the name of that sutta. Ambalatika Rahula Sutta. It's middle-length discourses. The discourse to Rahul at the Mango Stone. Just take a note of it, anybody who wants to check that out. This is the Buddha's advice on staying with what's wholesome. And so if you notice that you're getting into unwholesomeness of body, speech, or mind, cut it off before you really get into it. Or if you realize that you're stumbled into unwholesomeness, stop it right then. Or if later reflecting, that wasn't so good. Then if it was physical behavior, then you reveal it to a trusted spiritual friend. Or otherwise, just know for yourself that it wasn't so great, and take care to do better in future. But if you all the way through you realize, no, this is wholesome, it's good, then continue training yourself day and night happily in wholesome states. So the ideal is that a sense of concern, conscience, hiri, ottappa, these are guardrails that'll keep us from falling off the carriage. These are seat belts to keep us falling out of the car. They protect us. They help us. They prevent all kinds of drama and harm. Okay, but sometimes we didn't know better. Sometimes we realized later. The ideal approach, as I understand it, is to look at the harm, look it straight on. If there are amends to be done, do them. If there's some kind of reparation to be done, do it. If there's something you need to do to kind of fix your habit and way of being, do that. So you look at it straight on, you see the harm, look at the downside, and then say, okay, I'll do better. And let it go. Because guilt and shame and holding on, not in the sense of hiri ottappa, but in the sense of like a mental pain that comes up again and again, an internal flogging, internal hurting. This is actually unwholesome. So there's this moment where that dissonance between your ideal of behavior and your actual behavior becomes clear to you. And then there's something to do about it. And then we drop it. We are not expected to walk around with the weight of that on our shoulders. Again, if a monastic has done something bad and they realize it, then they confess it to a spiritual friend. But then it's cleared, it's over, it's done. We even have a regular ritual of clearing our misbehaviors. The code of behavior of male and female monks is fairly comprehensive. If you've done something wrong, it's a pretty good chance it's on that list. When there are some things that can't be repaired so easily, but the vast majority of wrong behaviors can be repaired with the simple acknowledgement to a fellow monastic. And so there's a ritual for doing it. A whole, give and take, a little script that we follow. You say that you've done this and that wrong, and they say, well, do you see your error? And you say, yes, I see it. And they say, well, do better in future. And you say, yes, I'll be restrained in future. Like, it's this whole little thing. And when you have done this, you are cleared. You're really cleared. You actually feel like, okay, that's passed. It's done. I cleared that. And you make an intention to do better in future, that you're not going to, just wallow around in the wrongdoing again and again, but you'll try to do better in future. that is the ideal. So I don't know what you lay people are supposed to do. We don't have confession. You all just need to, get friendly with your local Catholic church and go make use of what they offer there. Go do your confessions. I'm mostly joking. But it's a brilliant operation there to give people the opportunity to feel like they cleared it, and especially if those Catholic priests tell you something that you have to do to clear it. Then you have to do a certain number of Hail Marys, or you have to do some charitable thing. Then you have something in front of you that you could kind of work it off, and then you really feel like, okay, it's cleared, right? So we don't have all that elaborate setup for the lay people. But I think it's really, really important to look hard at the fact that hanging on to guilt, hanging on to shame, you're hanging on to unwholesome states. This is not what we're about. This is not the Buddhist path. And so you got to find a way to forgive you, that you did something really stupid and bad in your past. You probably did, because you're human. And even if you didn't do something really bad, I'll let you in on a little secret, because people do tell me their wrongdoings. If you haven't done something really extremely evil, then to the extent you've done something bad, that will haunt you as much as an extreme evil would have. We just have the capacity to burden ourselves with guilt and shame. So the guy who ran over somebody and kept driving, and the person died, and the person who accidentally trapped an animal in a suitcase in their childhood in the sun, and the animal died, will have equal horror burdening them over it. That's my opinion. This is not scripture. It's just my observation that a really, really, really good person, who the worst they've ever done was that, they smushed some ants that was on their napkin. That will haunt them. It'll be like, oh my God, I did that. I'm not saying that you should smush ants on your napkin. It's actually pretty horrific for the ants. But in terms of how bad human behaviors can be, my ex became viciously vengeful, and he did something quite evil, and involving a pet. And years later, on the phone, he tearfully apologized. And I said, if that's the worst thing you ever do in this life, let that be the high watermark of how bad it is. And just let that be the worst that you've ever done in this life, and go on without suffering over it. Some wording like that. It was bad, but, it was done. And then it was done. And, there's no undoing what he did. And yet, why should he carry that like a terrible burden with him forever? And I hope he took that to heart. I hope he lets that be the worst thing that he's ever done, and let him be it. I hope he found peace around that too. Guilt is an unwholesome state. It's a burden. Guilt, shame, they're unwholesome, they're burdensome. They don't help you rise up to be better. They just make you more neurotic and drive you to want to hide from these kinds of feelings. And what kinds of things do you do to hide from these kinds of feelings? Well, probably unwholesome things, everything from potato chips to heroin. You got to hide, because when we're inflicting these kinds of negative states on ourselves, we have nowhere to hide from the mind doing that. And it's a very trapped place to be when your own extremely sensitive mind is hearing blame and censure, just really harsh and you did that to that cat, and you just cringe. You want to sleep, you want to have ice cream, you want to you want to check out in some way, because there's no way to turn that thing off. Of course there is. With mental development, we can turn that thing off. We have to understand first that whatever facts might be underlying the accusations in your own head, it's not ultimately true. It's not wholesome. So there's a way in which it's not at all true. It may be true in that there was this done, this done, this done, this done. But the underlying message that you should be reflecting on this and cringing over it and hurt again and again by it is false. That is not true. That is not truth. That is falsity. So even though the statement of you did this may technically be accurate, the idea that you should be reliving it, reflecting on it, cringing over it, hurt by it, it's a lie. And who is it that lies to you? Mara. I was just talking about Mara the other day. Who was here for the Mara talk the other day? Somebody here was at the Mara talk. This is Mara. This is the voice of doubt, the voice that wants us to fail, to hurt, to fall down, and then will laugh at us when we fall. There's something in every being, every one of us, until we reach, I don't know which stage. I don't know exactly what stage of enlightenment the voice goes away completely. There's something in our psyche. I don't know what it is. I think it is entirely possible that there is an evil God that goes after people on occasion, particularly when they might get enlightened, and just zips in there and goes, oh, look, it's too late at night for you to meditate. Go away. Oh, don't meditate. Somebody might call. I think there really is an evil deity that might actually come and bug people at certain critical junctures in their lives. Should I go forth? Oh no, don't go forth. Be a lay person. There's something there that, some voice that will just examples, random examples. Should I go help that person over there? Oh no, don't help that person over there. I do think that sometimes in crucial junctures in our lives, there might actually be a deity or one of his many, many minions that comes along and actually hijacks our own brains and just says yada yada to us. Possible. But we don't even need one, because we can do it to ourselves anyway. Like there's this voice of doubt that fills in when Mara's busy or the minions are busy. When you don't even rate a minion, how sad is that? You just have to make do with your own internal evil, self-destructive voice. I don't know what it is. Honestly, I don't know whether there's a deity out there, Mara. I don't know. But there's certainly something in our own psychology and our own minds that does his work. And we need to know that voice, and we need to shut it down. Never compromise with a Mara type voice. Just don't do it. Don't listen to it. Get to know it. If the voice advised you to do something and it was just a total disaster, okay, now you know which voice it was. Identified. It might have a certain tone, certain word choice, certain way of approach. When I was reading this on that the other day when I was talking about Mara, there's one of these occasions where the Buddha was when he was striving and he was about to sit down and attain enlightenment, and Mara came to him with a voice of compassion, saying, oh, don't hurt yourself out here. You should you should go live. You could die in this spot and never get enlightened. And the Buddha knew who he was. So we got to know that voice. And don't let any kind of voice in our own heads flagellate ourselves. Trust me, I am quite certain everybody here has the memory that they're trying to blot out. Again, no matter how good a person you are, because if you've done only a tiny bit of evil, it will seem to you huge, and it will fill that role of hurting you if you let it. I have some things that, oh, they hurt so bad. I cringe and cringe, particularly around cats, getting cats placed and then they turned out into disaster, and I should have known better. And I was just doing what I intellectually thought was right, even though my heart knew this was a disaster. And I absolutely destroyed the lives of some cats, destroyed them in the most horrific way. And, every now and then it comes up when I'm weak. It's just the reminder of the cats comes up when I'm weak, and torments me and reminds me they were family, and you caused them to be separated. Like, it comes up and it can get me. But it's just playing a role. We need to understand the role that the thoughts are playing so that we don't let them play that role. The role of inducing doubt, the role of inducing pain, cringing, hurt. That pain, the cringing, the hurt, that's what I think of as shame. You don't have to live like this. You don't have to put up with it. You don't have to deal with it, no matter how bad the thing it is that you have done. Angulimala had to try to sit in meditation with the guilt of having killed around 1,000 people bloodily by hand as they begged for their lives. You know the Angulimala story? He's number what in the Middle Length Discourses? Just in case anyone here doesn't have it. Read, you want to do it? So there was this, possibly the world's worst serial killer. He was given the idea that he needed 1,000 fingers from 1,000 different people, and he hacked down some people, and then those fingers got ruined, so he started over. So he ended up with 999 before the Buddha intervened and saved him from killing his mother, according to the story. So he really suffered so much with these thoughts. He would sit down and meditate, and he would just jump up and pace. He couldn't deal with it. And then the Buddha enabled him to have enough faith to get him past this horrific guilt. Can you imagine having something like this the weight of this on your shoulders? I mean, some man begging, "Don't kill me, I have children." I mean, just, so much destruction and horror that he inflicted on so many people. And the story goes that the Buddha ended up causing him to do a statement of truth that brought healing to a woman. And okay, so I won't do any more spoilers, but the upshot is that when he said words of truth, he was able to see that he had changed, that he really is not the same as he was before. And so from then on, he was able to sit down and meditate and make progress. So you can, if nothing else, when your guilt voice, when your cruel inner voice starts up on you, and you did this, you did that, remember that, you did that, you just say to it, "Well, yeah, but I didn't kill about 1,000 people, did I now?" And the Buddha accepted the man. Sometimes when I'm teaching about the Angulimala story, I say to people, okay, when Angulimala asked the Buddha to become a monk, I say, okay, so a guy comes to you and asks for a job, and the only thing on his resume is that he's very athletic, and he's killed over 1,000 people, one by hand. Would you hire him? But of course, the Buddha did not look at that. He just saw this guy's potential for freedom. Of course he accepted him. Of course he did. Of course you're acceptable. Of course you are. Of course you can get enlightened. Of course you can. Now don't go killing a parrot. That's the thing. That's the biggie. Don't go killing an enlightened person, and don't kill a parent, and you're good. Just don't do that. Of course, you are acceptable, and try to hold on to this really seriously. Next time that voice starts up, identify it. I know you. I know you. You're the voice o doubt. VOD. The voice. You're the VOD. The VOD. I know you. The voice of Mara. The V.O.M. So whether it's a VOD or a V.O.M, I don't know, but I don't care. You're that voice. You're that. And it doesn't matter how factually correct you might be. You've got it all wrong. Oh, voice, oh, doubt. Got it wrong. Because the Lord Buddha saw the good potential in Angulimala. And I'm not that bad. So I don't need to carry this around. I don't need to hurt myself with it again and again. Never mind. Like the Buddhist monk can confess something and it's gone and it's done. Let it go. If something's really hurting you, really burdening you, maybe you need to take some gesture. Maybe if you, were cruel to a homeless person, maybe just make a donation somewhere or do something good for homeless people. Help them use computers one day or something, like do something. If it's really burning you. But aside from that, or maybe it may be suitable. If it's not going to be hurtful to anybody, it may be suitable to make some apologies here or there. But aside from that, it's okay. You can let these things go. And you can go ahead and walk in peace, go in peace. And know that this path is not improved with you being hurt, with your guilt, with your shame. That's not an improvement to this path. So these are the things that I wanted to cover tonight about the hiri ottappa, the wholesome shame and fear of wrongdoing that we really are very well advised to cultivate. And on the other hand, the retrospective guilt and shame that do us no good, that are unwholesome states, and that we need to shut down. If you have any questions, this is a time, but just be aware that you'll probably get highlighted on the tape if you do have something. Is there anything in the chat that I need to address?
Mr. Hey. Alvarez, yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh, is he still here? Okay. Yeah, he had written that he needed to go. Mm-hmm. Is it okay to use prior taught renunciation practices from other traditions, such as Gelug or Zen? Or might that be too confusing? Well, I don't know them. I have to remind everybody that probably the average college student knows more about the other schools of Buddhism than I do, because I'm just a devotee in one school of Buddhism. I'm not an educated person through a university about various schools of Buddhism. Is it okay to use the renunciate practices? What was the question again? Is it okay?
Meant the purification practices like they do in Tibetan. The bowing, the mantra repetitions, so their purification practices to let go of remorse and guilt.
I think something like that may be okay if it is used wisely. If you recognize it as like a psychological exercise, that is one thing. If you think that spiritually you've actually done something that works off karma, forget it. That's not early Buddhist, but that's not early Buddhist understanding. So no, you will never ever work it off with all of the, with outer gestures and practices. But if you want the comfort of it, the kind of a sense that you have done something that helped you clear, I think some outward gestures can be psychologically quite effective. Karmically, no, not so much. Depending, like maybe some reparations, that could be very powerful. mean, just recognizing, okay, this is what I did. It wasn't so good. Nothing to be done about it now. Maybe I can do some reparations. Maybe I can make some apologies. Maybe I just have to move on. Yeah, but just recognizing, okay, I did that. It wasn't great. That's very, very powerful in itself. Facing truth, so powerful. So I don't know if I, really addressed it correctly because I don't know those practices. So just with my limited knowledge, that's probably the best I can do. Reed, you have something?
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of on a different topic. Is that okay?
Let me make sure. Is that okay? Sister, did I address?
Yeah,
okay?
that was for Alvarez. I was just clarifying what
Yeah,
purification.
do you think I would have addressed it for him when he looks at the tape later?
Yeah, I was curious to hear how you would respond. So yes, sounds good.
Okay, great. Yes, Reed, go ahead.
Sure. No, you got me thinking because you mentioned, the voice of Mara, and it's just something that occurred to me, just a comment really, about like 3-ish years ago, a little over 3 years ago, I started being able to identify a couple of phrases that when they would occur to me in my thoughts, I knew that I had to like really pay attention to what was going on because I was about to do something that I would regret later.
That is so skillful.
Yeah, and the big one was actually I'm not going to say it flip, but F it. Whenever I said to myself, F it, and that's whenever I heard myself say those words to myself, like I came to recognize that I had to really, really stop what I was doing and just kind of back up and really like maybe not do anything at all for a little while and let the moment pass and then sort of reassess things. And that was the big one. And the other one was there's not really such a definite phrase because that one's a definite phrase that'll occur to me sometimes, but more some variation of like you deserve a chance to relax. You deserve a chance to just take some time off. And like sometimes
I
it's
am entitled to my unwholesome occupation.
yeah,
Yes.
and like sometimes it's innocent and I'll just like, whatever, watch a movie or play video games for a little. But sometimes that voice, and it's a really subtle one because sometimes it's not that big a deal and sometimes I actually do need to kind of relax for a little bit, but then sometimes it's a real subtle way of getting out of responsibilities and getting out of things that I need to do, and that usually just leads to guilt and shame. So
Can I make a suggestion then?
please
Oppose it on all the occasions, whether it would have been suitable or not, and just put in that pause and then decide if it is suitable that you'll do it, but not because of that thought. So just go ahead and oppose the thought every time. Kind of like with restraint in eating, you can be about to take a bite, and if you're going yum yum yum, just wait, nope. Wait till you don't want it in the yum sort of way, and then take the bite. So you can do the same activity, but without the without really hardening that greed.
so sort of evaluate the intentions a little bit, or
just oppose it. Just get flat out, oh, I'm entitled to it, am I? Oh no, I'm not. And then stop and say, okay, is this an activity that would actually be beneficial to me in some way? And they very well may be.
That's
so
brilliant.
Then you say, okay, this is going to be beneficial, I'll do it, but not because I'm entitled.
That's a great suggestion. That's a really good analogy too with the eating. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope I'll remember it next time I need to. Bring it up again in some future meeting. I'll be like, oh wow, that's so
did I say that?
Yeah, every now and then I hear her talking like, wow, I wish I was that wise. Oh yeah. oh yeah, sure. Some more comments on the chat. This is a very active chat night. Anything else I need to respond to? It really, really depends. You could threaten your mind that if it doesn't stop that, you'll go do some other thing that you don't want to do. Something involving math, or you might just turn your mind to doing wholesome things, turn your mind to healthy people, call that lonely elderly aunt. Just get out of yourself. Turn your mind away from it. Like, you may not win if you just sit there, Dallas would, but you may not win if you just sit there and say, well, it's unwholesome, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, but this is unwholesome. I don't want to hear it, yada, yada, yada. Like, you may not win. You may need to really literally go do something else. Like, whatever activity you're engaged in is leaving you too open, too wide open, too much wide open. Oh yeah, it's just removal of distracting thoughts. Exactly. There is that. Particularly if you're in your sitting meditation, you can't get up and run away. So if you're out and about in your day or doing things at home, you can change what you're doing to just get away from it. But the discourse that Sister just linked on the removal of distracting thoughts actually has very effective methods for working directly with your mind.
May I?
Sure.
Thank you. I think sometimes, like, when there's any sort of like nagging, just recurring, unavoidable, unpleasant thoughts, I think like sometimes having a sense of humor about it is sort of like successful for me, and viewing it almost as like depersonalizing it first of all, and almost looking at it like you would like an irritating child that you have to be around him, and you can't get away from him, and he's just like steady poking you, and there's nothing you can do about it because you can't hit him because he's a kid, and you just have to like live with this. But at the same time, you can I hope I say this right. You can feel superior to it. Like, you don't have to be bothered because it's just an annoying kid, and there it is, and that's what you're living with for the moment. And it kind of takes the ugliness out of it, I think, and it's just something that's there until it's not there, and that doesn't always work, but I think sometimes it does.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Reed.
Thank you.
I love the image of the poking child. It's so real.
And you can't hit him because he's a kid.
Something that I've used, one time there was a monk who looked at me with utmost compassion. This is when I was still in my life and my anger was still boiling over so easily. He just looked at me and said, "Why do you want to hurt the mind?" And I didn't even understand what he meant, and it bugged me. Like, why did he say that? What did that mean? But it has stayed with me. So sometimes when the mind gets a little bit mean, I'm like, mind, why do you want to hurt the mind? Why would you do that? Why would you want to hurt? Like, why? So that compassion of that monk comes back to my mind. Oh, why do you want to hurt the mind? So whatever guilt and shame that you have, like a loaded weapon aimed at you, may we all be able to drop it. Look around this group, to the extent people are allowing us, to the extent people are generous with their filming. Look around this group. Would you want anyone here hobbled by guilt and shame? Would you want anyone stabbed in the heart over memories of things from long ago or last week? Things that can't be changed? No. I wouldn't want that for anyone here. Which person would you choose? Like, who would you choose to be a victim of your meanest thoughts? Who would you dare say those thoughts aloud to with this group? No, you wouldn't. Sometimes if your thoughts were said out loud, people would just fall over with horror. How mean, how cruel. So I have something I call the 4-year-old standard. This is a different take on a kid. The 4-year-old standard is that if whatever is going through my mind is not suitable for the tender ears of a beloved 4-year-old, it's not good enough for my mind. It's not gentle enough for my mind, because my mind is very, very sensitive and it's trapped. Whatever I do to it, it just has to deal with it. And so if I were to say, you're always failing, you're never going to make anything of yourself, to a 4-year-old, it's evil. Or to say, you're always dropping the car keys, what's wrong with you? That's cruel. So if it's not suitable for a 4-year-old, not suitable for this one either. And so I use that as a filter. I use it as a filter for the quality of the niceness or cruelty of the kinds of thoughts that I am entertaining in my own mind. The 4-year-old standard, that's what I call it. So think of anything that you've ever said to yourself with words like always, never, shouldn't. Now, these are not very nice things to say to a 4-year-old or to your own mind. And statements of reminding you in a really cutting tone about things that you did, mistakes you made, all you shouldn't have. Oh, how could you? You back into somebody else's car bumper and you go, oh, you're stupid. Like, what if a 4-year-old, bumped the furniture? Oh, you stupid. Like, you don't want to be that. You don't want to be in that level of cruelty to a child or to you. Again, internally, very, very, very sensitive. And I think if you really take to heart this 4-year-old standard of filter, then I think you'll feel a bit of burden lifted from your shoulders. Sometimes we're living our lives trying to placate the cruel voices, and that cuts us off from our creativity. It cuts us off from bravery and taking chances. It makes us more afraid because the stakes get so high, because the voices can be so mean. It just takes all of the stakes are not high. The worst that'll happen is a skinned knee or, people laughing. Like, that's the worst that'll happen. But you're not going to be awake at night with your voice in your own head going, me, 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 me. And because you're not going to have the voice at night going, meh, 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 then you can live more freely. So really do encourage you to embrace the 4-year-old standard.